Grayson has been the subject of an ethics investigation surrounding a hedge fund he owns. Among the issues being examined, did Grayson use his position as a member of Congress to try and recruit investors into the fund? And did he use money from the fund to help pay a staffer in his Senate campaign? You ran a hedge fund, correct?
I ran a friends and family partnership, which some people, for political reasons, have chosen to describe as a hedge fund.
It's described as a hedge fund, though. In your filings, you refer to it as a hedge fund, do you not?
Listen, we're talking about investments between me and my 5 children. Show me a hedge fund that operates that way.
You had no other investors besides those? You had other investors.
We had 2 small investors who were friends of mine for decades who invested 3% of the fund. 97% of the money in the fund was me and my 5 children.
Okay. Then if you had so let's walk through the chronology.
Basically, I'm not Soros, okay? This whole idea that somehow I'm this big shot on Wall Street is ridiculous. The thing was tiny. Well, you know, we're talking about on Wall Street multi-billion-dollar funds. This was tiny compared to any of those funds. It's just simply a vehicle for me and my children to invest money.
If it was a vehicle for you and your children to invest money, then why create marketing material? If you weren't going to be marketing it to other investors, why have you created marketing material for the Grayson Fund?
We didn't.
This material here, the Grayson Fund from June 2013.
Yeah, that's
February
not
2013.
Mine. That's not mine.
This is not you.
No, I never saw that before. The New York Times wrote about it, and that, you know, that's my picture. But so what? We didn't create that information. We weren't marketing the fund.
You had nothing, you had no marketing for the fund whatsoever?
No.
You're saying these are forgeries?
I'm saying I never saw them before in my life. I'm not in the best position to judge whether they're forgeries or not. I do know that. Is it possible somebody else within your fund created these? No.
So you're saying this did not come from anyone inside your hedge fund?
Correct.
Talk to me about David Keith.
Sure.
David Keith is an employee who does what for you?
David Keith is the assistant campaign manager.
The assistant campaign manager?
For my campaign.
And was he also paid for a period of time from the hedge fund?
Yeah, he was paid for 1 day a week from the hedge fund and 4 days a week for the campaign.
And what did he do for the hedge fund?
What he did for the hedge fund is essentially administration.
Because he told the New York Times, and this is what he said, this is from the New York Times, sorry. More recently, David Keith, finance director for Mr. Grayson's Senate campaign, was being paid $1,000 a month, in part to help Mr. Grayson in search for new investors in his hedge fund, Mr. Keith said in an interview.
No, that's not true. He never spoke to the New York Times.
You're saying he never spoke to the New York Times?
That's correct. The New York Times is full of shit.
I just want to be clear. You're saying that the New York Times reported that they had an interview with David Keith, and you're saying the New York Times is lying about that interview?
David told me he never spoke to the New York Times. I believe David.
Okay, so let's go back to David Keith for a second. Apart from other than this, so explain to me again what were his duties? What were his administrative duties?
Well, we have to do monthly accounting. We have to do a certain amount of trades, if you will. I showed him how the trades were done. I was hoping to delegate that to him over time. You know, there were active investments being made at all times. I wanted to be able to delegate that to somebody, so I was basically training him to do that.
So for a period of time, David Keith worked for your campaign and was being paid $5,000 a month from your campaign, correct?
Sounds about right. I don't know the specific amount. It sounds right. Then
he also began working for the hedge fund and was paid $1,000 a month for the hedge fund work.
4 days for the campaign, 1 day for the fund.
So as a result, you end up cutting his salary because he went from $5,000 from the campaign to making $4,000 for the campaign and $1,000 from the hedge fund.
I don't know if that's true now. It might be true. It sounds right to me. I'd have to go back and check.
It gives the impression that you were subsidizing the work that David Keith was doing on the campaign through hedge fund accounts.
No, it doesn't give that impression. I just explained to you what he was doing.
Well, I'm still administrative duties.
I mean, look, for God's sake, there's no need to do that. This campaign has raised $3 million already. This Senate campaign has raised $3 million. The campaigns in general, the Grayson campaigns, have raised almost $20 million in the past 8 years. Do you think $1,000 a month to David Keith is something that I'd even bother with, unless he was actually doing something for the fund?
Carla Cole.
She's my office manager.
For your congressional office?
That's correct.
Did she also work at the hedge fund?
Yes, 1 day a week.
Do you see why this creates the impression of a problem, that you're conflating your work as a Senate candidate, as a member of the House, and the hedge fund? Where does one end and one begin? And doesn't that represent a problem that the Ethics Commission is having right now?
It's exactly the opposite, okay? It's exactly the opposite. When I had people working for the hedge fund, like Carla, I paid them 1 day a week to do so. What if I had not done that? That would have been a problem.
Well, why
the
not
fact
hire
that I did
separate
that
staff?
proves that it's on the up and up.
Well, why not keep your staff separate? Why not have a congressional staff, a Senate campaign staff, and a hedge fund staff?
Because we're talking about 1 day a week. None of this was full-time work.
The Ethics Commission has now passed this on to the House, correct?
No.
For further investigation?
No, that's not correct.
It's not?
No. Let me explain how that works.
The
It's complicated.
Office of Congressional Ethics, United States House of Representatives, recommendation, the board recommends that the committee, being the House Committee on Ethics, further review the allegation of Representative Grayson may have permitted the use of his name and received compensation from entities providing professional services involving fiduciary relationship, meaning the hedge fund in part.
Okay, let me explain.
Okay.
Okay, here's how this works. The Office of Congressional Ethics is an organization that's like the Little League of Ethics. Okay, they're not a significant organization. Anybody files anything with them, okay? You could file something, I could file something, my dog could file something with the Office of Congressional Ethics, okay? What they do is they basically are a conveyor belt. They take anything that's at all plausible and they pass that on to the Ethics Committee, okay? That's what they do. They chew on it, they gnaw on it, and they pass it on after a while to the Ethics Committee. So the Office of Congressional Ethics took that action, which they almost always do. They're a conveyor belt. They just take stuff and they pass it on to the Ethics Committee. The Ethics Committee is the Ethics Committee has decided not to form an investigative subcommittee on these allegations.
They haven't said they will never.
Well, anything's possible, Jim.
No, but they're saying that, aren't they still reviewing?
I assume so. I don't know one way or the other.
So it's not a definitive, it's not as if there's no foundation here and so therefore we're dismissing it.
Here's what is definitive, okay? In every single case where they have not informed the investigative subcommittee, there has never been any